I didn't raise my voice when the HOA president demanded to know why her brand new SUV had shut off in the middle of our pasture. I didn't even mention the fact that the grass under her tires was scorched in neat little lines from where the current had run through the soil. I just watched Grandpa walk up slow, his hat low, his hands steady, and clip the lead back onto the fence post like he was finishing some small chore. He didn't say a word either. Just nodded once at their wide-eyed lawyer, who had suddenly discovered the limits of property law in real time. That was the moment it all broke open. Humiliating, irreversible. And truthfully, it had been a long time coming. Life before all this was never about fights or power plays. Grandpa had bought the ranch decades back, long before any developer came sniffing around and parceling off scrubland into neat little cookie-cutter lots. By the time I moved in with him, I was just trying to get away from the noise of the city, heal from a divorce, and find a steadier rhythm. The ranch wasn't glamorous. It was stubborn land cedar breaks, rocky soil, stretches of grass that browned too early in summer. But it was honest. Our days were simple, fixing fences, hauling feed, taking the old hounds down by the creek, sometimes catching catfish when the water was high. Evenings were quiet except for the wind through the cottonwoods. There was no grand plan to stir up trouble with anyone. We minded our own. That's all we ever wanted. The first spark of nonsense came so small I thought it was a mistake. A letter taped to the rusted gate at the edge of the subdivision where their asphalt ended and our dirt road began. According to the HOA, my grandfather was in violation for keeping livestock too close to residential lots. Livestock on a ranch, land that had been zoned agricultural since before half the board members were born. At first, I laughed. Grandpa didn't. He just folded the paper once and slid it under the salt shaker on the kitchen table, where things sat until he was ready to deal with them. A week later, another letter came. This one claimed our fencing was non-compliant with neighborhood aesthetic standards. They meant the barbed wire, the same fence that had been there since 1975. Long before their covenants, long before their vinyl-sided houses. Grandpa still didn't say much, but I saw the set of his jaw tighten. He wasn't confused. He knew exactly what it meant. They thought they could push him off his land, piece by piece. We tried to be civil. I drafted a letter myself, typed neat, with citations from the county assessor's office showing our property classification. I even printed the zoning map, highlighting the thick green strip that clearly marked agricultural use. I went to their meeting one Tuesday night, sat in a folding chair while they clicked through PowerPoints about mailbox paint colors, and politely explained that they didn't have jurisdiction over our ranch. They smirked. One of them asked if Grandpa was too old to maintain his fences and if maybe he should consider transitioning the property to align with the neighborhood vision. That phrase, neighborhood vision, stuck in my head like a splinter. They sent more letters after that, escalating to threats of lienies, which had no legal standing but looked scary, typed in bold. Grandpa never once lost his temper. He just listened, nodded, and told me to keep copies of everything. That's when I realized he wasn't ignoring them. He was stacking ammunition. The more we pushed back with facts, the louder they got with threats. They blocked the easement road one weekend with cones, claiming it was private H. A meant access. Never mind that Grandpa's deed showed the easement carved out in perpetuity since 1964. Another time, they called animal control about our cattle, insisting we were endangering children who lived 2 streets over. The inspector came, looked around at the perfectly healthy herd behind, secured fencing, rolled his eyes, and left. But the pattern was clear. They wanted us boxed in, harassed into selling. The subdivision was creeping closer each year, and the board president in particular had made it her mission to absorb our land into her feet. When Grandpa stopped fixing things out loud and started spending late nights at the kitchen table with his old reading glasses on, sorting through dusty folders. I watched him grow quieter as the weeks passed. Neighbors who once waved when they drove by now looked away, probably afraid of their own HOA. Some nights I'd hear him out in the barn, the radio low, pages turning. He dug out survey maps, rolled up in cardboard tubes, yellowed deeds, even old correspondence with the Bureau of Land Management. I helped where I could, scanning documents, pulling county records, making sure every certified letter was copied and logged. It wasn't anger driving him. It was something colder. He moved like a man who already knew the outcome, just taking careful steps to get there. The isolation stung me more than him, I think. My kids stopped visiting for a while, scared off by talk of lawyers and threats. But Grandpa didn't waver. "They're playing checkers," he said once, "and we've got the whole chessboard." The evidence he stacked was surgical. First, the deed nut. Just the one filed with the county clerk, but the original land patent recorded when the ranch was first parceled from federal land. It spelled out grazing rights, water rights, and boundaries in language that made the HOA covenants look like doodles. Then he found something stranger, a military easement order from the 1940s, when the ranch had been used as staging grounds during training exercises. Buried in that paperwork was a reclamation clause giving federal protection to certain boundary lines, including the stretch where the HOA now claimed authority. It wasn't something that gave us daily benefit, but it was the kind of clause that made lawyers sweat. Grandpa cataloged everything, cross-referenced zoning codes, even had a county surveyor friend mark out the original fence line with GPS coordinates. By the time the HOA thought they had us cornered, he was already 10 moves ahead, and then came the SUV. The president, bold as ever, decided to make a point one Saturday by parking her shiny new Escalade right across our main gate, blocking the cattle trail. She left it idling. Hazards on, like she owned the place. When we asked her to move, she snapped that it was community property now and stormed off with her little entourage to look at wildflowers. That's when Grandpa did something I'll never forget. He walked back to the barn, pulled out the heavy insulated gloves, and ran a length of cable from the fence charger to the metal gate sheet he pressed her bumper against. The fence was already hot enough to sting a cow into backing up, but with the gate conducting, her SUV became part of the circuit. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to make every electrical system in that polished beast light up like a Christmas tree. When she came back, it wouldn't start. The locks stuttered. The dash went blank. Alarms chirped in confused bursts. She screamed at us, threatened lawsuits, demanded we fix it. Grandpa didn't say a word. He just stood there, calm as sunrise, and unhooked the cable in plain view of everyone watching. Her lawyer, who'd finally shown up to mediate, looked like he wanted to disappear into the dirt. The real reveal came days later at their official board meeting. We walked in with a single binder every deed, every survey, every ordinance highlighted and tabbed. I laid it on the table while Grandpa sat back in his chair, silent. I explained in the simplest possible terms that not only did the HOA have no jurisdiction over our land, but their attempts to interfere had likely violated state harassment statutes. Then I flipped to the military easement order. Their lawyer went pale. The room was dead quiet, except for the paper sliding across the table. The president, still furious about her fried SUV, tried to bluster, but even her own board members shifted uncomfortably. One by one, the fight drained out of them. They realized this wasn't just some old rancher they could bully. This was a man with the law, the land, and history itself on his side. The aftermath wasn't explosive. It was slow erosion on their part. The threats stopped. The letters dried up. Within 6 months, the president resigned for personal reasons. 2 other board members followed. Rumor spread that their legal fund had taken a hit covering the mess. Around the neighborhood, people got quieter around us. Some offered sheepish nods at the feed store. Others just pretended not to see us. We didn't need apologies. The silence was better. On the ranch, life slid back into its steady rhythm. Cattle moved across pastures, fences held, the creek kept flowing. My kids came back to visit, and Grandpa taught them how to mend wire, how to respect boundaries, both natural and legal. Every time I pass that spot on the fence line, I still see the image burned into memory. Grandpa in his worn gloves, clipping that lead back onto the post while their SUV sat useless in the grass. No shouting, no gloating, just quiet control. They thought they could write us out with fines and letters. Instead, they got a lesson in land law they won't forget. Now when I drive through the subdivision, some wave stiffly, others turn away. Either way, it's quiet again. That's all we ever wanted.